Let's look at possibly why the four temporary kings and kingdoms of the world on Daniel 7 prophecy are called beasts in particular. And in summary, I'll give you the heads up conclusion right now. The summary statement is that if you follow the ways of a beast, you become a beast. So, how did I get there? We looked at these verses in Daniel 2 earlier on, where I said there's a lot of echoes here to creation language. There's heaven. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. There's mankind. There's beasts of the field, birds of the heaven. It's reminding us of all the different stuff God created in Genesis 1. And then this phrase in particular that I glossed over before when we looked at these verses, but is central and important, making you rule over them. Now, who rules over the birds of the heavens and the beasts of the field? In Genesis 1, that's Adam and Eve, man and the woman, mankind. And in particular, if mankind had been fruitful and multiplied, filled the earth, man and woman would have been kings and queens over creation, and Adam himself, as representative head, may have been king over humanity. And so Nebuchadnezzar is really a Adam-like figure where he's ruling over God's creation. He's ruling over the creatures just like Adam was made to do. And so what's is going to, we know things didn't pan out very well for the first Adam. What's going to happen with this Adam-like figure? Nebuchadnezzar is Adam-like as a having dominion over creation. And one thing that we find of how it pans out for Nebuchadnezzar himself in Daniel chapter 4, a chapter that we didn't read, but Nebuchadnezzar ends up becoming a beast. A lot of fascinating parallels in Daniel chapter 4 that we have neither time nor necessity to get into, but it would be a good exercise if you're interested. Read Daniel 4 and listen to all of the parallels to the creation account, Genesis 1 through 3, and meditate on what they may mean. We're not going to look at all here. We don't need to, but a tree in the midst of the earth is central to this vision that Nebuchadnezzar saw. A tree in the midst of the earth, that sounds familiar. And all of this creation language of heaven and earth, of leaves and trees and beasts of the field and birds of the heavens, all very reminiscent of creation. Well, in this vision, Nebuchadnezzar hears these words: "Let his portion be with the beasts of the grass of the earth. Let his mind be changed from a man's, and let a beast's mind be given to him." So someone's going to be changed from being a man to becoming a beast. Daniel gives the interpretation, says, "Yikes, Nebuchadnezzar, actually this is about you, and afraid to tell you," well, Daniel wasn't afraid, but as the idiom goes, "Afraid to tell you, sorry to tell you, sorry not sorry. This is the interpretation, O king. It is a decree of the Most High, which has come upon the Lord my king, that you shall be driven from among men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the earth." This vision was about you. You will be made to eat grass like an ox, and you will be wet with the dew of the heaven. And indeed, it does come to pass, and Nebuchadnezzar basically he acts like an animal. He grows out his nails like claws, and his hair grows like either eagle's feathers, and he eats grass like an ox, and he lives under the dew of the heaven like just a demon. You think about the demon possessed man in the Gospels. Nebuchadnezzar is like that. He's a naked man walking around on all fours like an animal, eating grass and letting his hair grow out, and maybe snorting and making sounds like an animal. He has the mind of a beast. Well, what caused this to happen? The most immediate trigger was he was walking on the roof of his palace. Oh, that has resonances with what got David in trouble. his palace in Babylon, and he says to himself, "Is this not great Babylon that I have built with by my power and royal residence for the glory of my majesty?" Lots of parallels there to Genesis 10 through 11. Babel in Hebrew, Babel, Babylon. There's just one word, not two words like we have in English. Babylon is just Babel in Hebrew. Built by my mighty power. That's when, remember, King Nimrod was built the first kingdom that appears in the Bible when he built Kingdom of Babylon. For the glory of my majesty, remember that that was the goal of the Babylonians, was to make a great name for themselves. So there's definitely echoes. Remember, biblical Hebrew uses rhyming ideas, and all of the language of Genesis 10 through 11 is resonating like a echo chamber, like a canyon, resonating in our brain as we read this story. We're hearing Genesis 10 through 11 all over again. And we're also hearing echoes of the fall of man in Genesis 3. For example, down here, this was Nebuchadnezzar was going to stay in this state until what did he need to break out of? What was the kind of the crux of it all? Until you know that the Most High rules the kingdom of man and gives it to whom he will. Nebuchadnezzar's fundamental mistaken thinking was, or heart condition, was failing to realize that even though he was a king, that he had a king over him. This is, in fact, although it may not, jump out immediately, but with a little meditation, this is the fundamental idea that the serpent was injecting into humanity when he deceived the woman and says, the serpent says, God knows that when you eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. This is classic beast thinking. For a beast's power and control is there's interchangeable roles. Whichever beast has the most fierce, sharp teeth and the fiercest claws and the largest growl and the strongest muscles and the fastest, he's going to be the alpha, the king of the pack, the top of the food chain. But if somebody else has sharper claws and sharper teeth and more scary growl, they can take over. So it's not a matter of, there's not a fundamental distinction of being, an ontological distinction in beast thinking. There's just, if you could have what Satan is saying to Eve, if you could have God's stuff, if you could have what God has, then you could do what God does. You could run the universe yourself, and you could make your own decisions about what is good. I'm going to pronounce this good, it's worth keeping. I'm going to pronounce that as evil, it's worth sending a flood and destroying it, or sending it into exile, or pronouncing death over it. If you had the same knowledge of good and evil that God does, you could be a judge of the universe and pronounce judgment on what stays and what goes. So the four beasts of Daniel 7 are following in line with the first beast, and the first beast is the first king, who is Nebuchadnezzar himself, and literally became a beast. Now the other three didn't necessarily, I don't think they did, become beasts in the same literal sort of way that Nebuchadnezzar did, but they follow in principle of the beastly way. If you think like a beast, if you listen to a beast as your leader and follow in the way of beasthood, then you yourself will become a beast. In Revelation 12 through 13, the beasts are subservient to the dragon, who is the serpent, just as in Genesis 3, the serpent was the most cunning of all of the beasts of the field. So the serpent is a leader, and anyone who follows his way becomes functionally a beast themselves.